So for the recent time that I've been making videos, there's just been a real lack of Resident Evil content on the channel here. And that's pretty much very simple, as there's nothing. We don't know anything other than the fact that we are getting Resident Evil 9 at some point. Maybe not this year, but next year probably, we don't know. So that leaves me with the idea of just kind of talking about other remakes they could possibly make. Now there's still a few, I say a few, because that really depends on how far they're ready to stretch out. Now, them really just thinking of more the lucrative sense, and that, hey, if we remake this game, this cult classic, people will love to play the reimagined version of it, which is kind of true in a sense, but not always that works out. Resident Evil 3 is probably a great example of this. So in this video, I will be talking about that, and I know you guys are thinking, Resident Evil fans, you literally been having games for like a good couple years straight in a row. Why aren't you just, happy that you're getting Onimusha or something, or Okami? And I'm like, don't get me wrong, great games, just not exactly my #1 favorite game, which is R8. That is simply it. I don't hate those games. I actually am happy that they are back. I was actually really surprised, and that actually kept me out when watching the Game Awards. But outside of that, yeah, I'm not really too, keen. I'm not, again, ecstatic like I would be with something like Resident Evil or something like Final Fantasy or basically any of my top 3 games of all time. That is simply it. Right now, I think I'm more hyped for Ninja Gaiden, but that's going off topic. Anyway, in this video, we'll be talking about Resident Evil remakes. So let's start off with our first one. Now in 2020, Resident Evil 3 Remake came out to a very underwhelming review, I would say, from a lot of fans, especially the more OG, as this game was a lot shorter than the original and had some cut content which, well, some would say which really ruined the game, which I agree. Like, for example, I think the clock tower, that was completely scrapped, that was completely gone. And this is why people petitioned for a Resident Evil 3 Remake Director's Cut, which would have fixed a lot of things if they actually went ahead and, fixed some of the things like the cut, BOWs, the locations, the bosses. Bosses wise, I know it's definitely been cut. So that's kind of a little bit of a mystery. To be honest, I was kind of glazing over the fact that they also removed I actually forgot the name of it. Basically, in the old games, you'll sometimes have split decisions. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's live? No, I can't actually, I really can't remember what the thing was called. But essentially, you would be able to make, decisions about whether to fight, let's say, for example, Nemesis, or to run away. Stuff like that was kind of cut, and it was kind of strange. I forgot. You guys really need to tell me in the comments, because it is really irritating that I can't remember what that thing is called. But essentially, that was kind of the thing that kept on, get people to replay the game. Not only that, it is kind of strange, which I don't know, a lot of people, really point out this, but Mercenaries seems like it was completely cut. Now, Mercenaries kind of started, with the Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 3 had it, but it just seems a little bit strange that they didn't have any of that. I know they had that whole multiplayer Resident Evil game. What is it, Resident Evil's Resistance? No, I'm thinking of the other one. I don't know, I think it's Resident Evil's Resistance or something like that. It was a multiplayer game, basically trying to be like Dead by Daylight, which, well, shocker, didn't really turn out well like a lot of these Dead by Daylight clones. Which, I don't know why they done that instead of just giving us Mercenaries. I think everyone would have taken that and played Resident Evil 3 Remake a lot more. So that is one game I feel like we had to get out of the way before we talk about the other games, as that one is probably the one that's been the most robbed, as it actually has a remake. Comment down below, would you guys still love to see a Resident Evil 3 Director's Cut in any kind? To the surprise of no one, Code Veronica needs a remake. And why is because there's no point trying to make this, big climactic, finish with Resident Evil 5 Remake and then completely skip, I don't know, Code Veronica, as that game still officially kind of explains why or what Wesker was doing during, you know, the events before Resident Evil 5. And it a little bit even established, well, I say a little bit, it really does deepen the feud between both Chris and Wesker. I've said this many times before, and I don't understand if they actually do skip this. Why? Like, it just doesn't make sense. I know from a product sense, it makes sense to remake Resident Evil 5. Of course, it makes sense. But from a story standpoint, you're really, and I mean really, ruining the story in this sense. And people are just going to be like, okay, when did he get all this googly-eyed powers with, you know, running speed and hitting the Matrix? No one would know. Like, they look at Resident Evil 1, and then they go to Resident Evil 5, and they're like, what? I would be confused myself. I would need an explanation, and I don't feel like I could truly experience Resident Evil 5 if that wasn't, you know, the case. But obviously, that is one of my points. That is why I said Resident Evil Code Veronica needs a remake. I hope they actually do, because it really does, again, need it. Now, if you guys want me to do a full video talking about other points, or just generally the game itself, definitely comment that below, as I'm thinking of doing it. I just kind of forgot. I don't even know what happened to my recording of Code Veronica. So you're kind of probably just seeing like old trailers or something from Code Veronica. So yeah, let's move on to the next point, which from here on out is probably just going to be, well, a little bit strange, and ones that don't technically need one, but you know, why not, just for the sake of talking about it. Resident Evil Outbreak is a multiplayer game which you see yourself playing a few characters, you know, that are basically people, just not generic people exactly, but basically not your big main lead like Leon, Chris, Claire, any of those lots. These are people during the raccoon outbreak, and you're essentially just trying to find a way out of this mess, dealing with different type of POW that we haven't even seen in, well, some of the mainline games. Like for example, a female licker and tentacle. We have seen a lot of tentacled tree creatures, but essentially some new ones. And so if you guys haven't heard or haven't played this game, I don't blame you, because again, it's not really accessible like that, and it would be great if they could do that and fix that. Obviously, this game came in obviously 2s, so you had Resident Evil Outbreak 1 and Resident Evil Outbreak 2, or Resident Evil File 2. And both games are basically same, not exactly the same obviously, same premise, you know, you're trying to escape, different scenarios, different characters. There's a lot about this game that actually is really interesting too. So I'll probably talk about a little bit more in depth in another video, and probably try to get some sort of footage. It is a pretty, I would say, like, you definitely could be on the edge in this game, because it's like a little bit more different, and not only that, you can actually, I think, what, almost become basically a zombie in this game. So again, there's a few cool things I really do like about this, and I feel like that's probably why a few people actually do like this game. Again, you definitely want to try to play this, whether through emulation or something, because I don't know if Capcom will. I don't know why this wasn't their first choice when it came to making a multiplayer Resident Evil game, as this really stuck the landing while the others kinda just sunk to the floor, down to the laboratories of Umbrella. So let's hope that, cross our fingers and hope that Resident Evil Outbreak does get some sort of remake or sequel. I feel like both can be great in whatever case. Now the last two I'm going to be talking about kind of has some similarities. The similarity is really just more so with the gameplay, as you shoot, you're in first person, and also that these games kind of don't really have to get a remake. These are games that I think they're pretty much, well, at least with Resident Evil Dead Aim, that is actually so timed, Resident Evil Dead Aim is a game that you can kind of just, it's not really connected in the sense that I think to the actual mainline games. You see yourself basically on a boat, on a mission to basically stop some evil guy, I can't remember his name, I think Mobius, or something like that, and obviously, you encounter this spy lady, very similar to Ada Wong, and you basically, I think, have to work together, something along those lines. I don't know, I can't remember the plot exactly, but these games essentially do not really need one. I just kind of wanted to throw them in as an extra little point to talk about. I feel like they are a cool idea. I definitely like the idea. I really do hope Dead Aim gets one, but there's just not really much sense to actually do one. Now, if you guys would love to see something like that, or Gun Survivor, which is the other game I wanted to talk about, which I couldn't find any footage really of that. So sadly I'm just showing, Dead Aim. Those games aren't really all that, again. They're just not as popular or, talked about in the community as much as something like Resident Evil Outbreak, which is still a game that's kind of forgotten. I can't say kinda, is pretty much forgotten, because I only found out about it like a few years ago back. Maybe like 2 years ago. But essentially something like that, and I didn't really know much about it, so yeah. It was a definitely weird thing. Actually, funny enough, I actually found out Dead Aim before even Outbreak, so that's a stranger one to think about. So anyway, if you guys do want to see any of these type of things, I would love to see you guys talk about in the comment section below. Talk about your thoughts on what should get a remake and what shouldn't. And without further ado, peace out. And obviously, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your family and friends, and yeah, enjoy.